Hey, what's up guys, it's Ronaldo here. So this video is going to focus on a column that appeared on South Africa's biggest news website, News24. And the fact that this column actually exists tells you everything you need to know about the current state of South Africa. Here is a piece that was written by a guest columnist and actually got featured on the website, even though within the article or the column itself, there's 16 stereotypical references to white people, whereas if that statement had to be made by a white columnist and requested to be posted on News24, it would have either been immediately deleted when the email was received, or if it was in letter form, it would have been thrown in the bin immediately. Now, this guest column was written by somebody called Naledi Chirwa, which is part of the EFF Student Command, and she's also a Mail & Guardian Top 200 Young South African. Because we all know that in order to make it on those top X lists, you need to be controversial somehow. Well, in this instance, you need to be racist, you need to be a bigot, and you need to stereotype whenever you get the opportunity. And hey, then you'll make it onto that list. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description below that you can go and read that column. Now, warning, I highly doubt that you'll be able to stomach that entire column, but if for some magical reason you get that right, then just come back and we'll discuss some of the highlights of that column. Okay, so I'm assuming that you've read the part of the column or the entire column. If you've read the entire one, then well done, because I don't know how you stomached it. But as you can clearly see, this individual's got a massive chip on her shoulder. It's quite unfortunate that a major media outlet is allowing this type of narrative to actually be published on their website. Now listen, I'm all for freedom of speech, but as we all know, with regards to section 16 of the Bill of Rights, which is freedom of speech, there are definitely some limitations, but clearly those limitations don't apply to her because, massive chip on the shoulder, and hey, what's better than stereotyping a couple of million white people every now and then? Now, there's one specific area that I would like to focus on in this column, and yes, listen, there are many. The fact that she stereotyped white people more than 16 times in this short little column tells you everything that you need to know. But the area that I would like to focus on is the following. She says that white people are adamant in driving the deception that they are not the descendants of their ancestors who structured this system of dispossession and perpetual violence, and yet find no fault defending the fruits of violence and having their surnames on title deeds emanating from theft, rape, murder, and psychological trauma of black people. Now, where do you begin with just that statement alone? The fact that you think that all white people are trying to excuse the actions of their ancestors is already outlandish, because white people actually have different backgrounds. I'm not sure if you know this. You get Dutch, you get French, you get German, and then you get Jewish. I mean, there's many white people in this country that aren't just the Jan van Riebeeks that you think we are. And the fact that you are trying to associate every single piece of land in South Africa to have been taken by force in the sense of rape, murder, it's just completely insane. Now, as I've stated earlier, this article clearly makes reference to white people as if it's one singular group that all think the same, act the same, and they all come from the same place, which really leaves a lot to be desired when you want to actually have a conversation or at least a disagreement with somebody that's a different skin tone than you. Added to this, the fact that this entire opinion piece or column is written from a perspective with regards to the Zinzi Mandela situation. Now, here's an individual that unprovoked started a very racial and bigoted conversation on social media, but now you are writing this column piece, writing it as if white people started this argument, when in actual fact it was Zinzi Mandela that came out of nowhere and tried to belittle the achievements by Chris Barnard and then moved it on to a land issue, which is completely insane. I really just don't understand why mainstream media is giving voices like this airtime. We've seen the same thing with the EFF in general. We've seen the same thing with Lindsay Marsdorp, with Andile Mngxitama and the BLF. And it seems that you are allowed to be hateful, hurtful, and stereotype an entire population group because of their race, as long as it's aimed towards white people. Now, as I've stated earlier, imagine for 1 second if this column was written by a white individual talking about black people the way that this black individual is talking about white people, do you think that this would have even made it to the editor's desk? There's not a chance in hell that it would have made it to the editor's desk, not even talking about publishing it on the biggest news website in South Africa. And that clearly demonstrates the double standards of racism that's currently in South Africa. So to end off this video, I know that I shouldn't be shocked at these type of column pieces and the actual fact that it gets published. But I am. And I know that millions of South Africans out there, whether you're white, black, colored, Indian, Asian, you look at these type of articles and you go, what the hell? Well, not only the guest columnist thinking, but also what was mainstream media thinking by publishing this. Just to give you an example, this piece is about Zinzi Mandela and defending her. But yet, when Zinzi Mandela made those outlandish statements for 48 hours on Twitter, in over 40 tweets, for the next 24 hours, you couldn't find an article written on her by mainstream media. There was nothing written about how she spoke about white people, what she said about Chris Barnard, and blatant lies about somebody being his gardener that taught him how to do a heart transplant. You couldn't find an article on mainstream media. But now here we are, where News 24 will gladly post people defending Zinzi Mandela by making the most outlandish claims. It just doesn't add up. And the fact that we are in a South Africa where these type of guest columns are considered to be newsworthy tells you everything you need to know. And that's basically all I've got to say. If you enjoy my content, then please consider supporting me by making a donation via Zap or a SnapScan. You can do that by following the link in the description below. Also, please be sure to drop a comment and let me know what you think about this amazing column written by this individual. Also, please be sure to smash that like button. Let's see if we can get 1,150 likes on this video. And those likes will pretty much represent that we find her opinion piece absolutely insulting and belittling. Also, please be sure to subscribe, and if you are subscribed, hit that bell icon so that you can be notified of my future uploads. Lastly, please be sure to share this video with your friends and family, because that's literally the only way my message gets out there. Till later, cheers and peace out.